Dear Chosen One, what if I told you that the one who was meant to walk beside you in divine love is now watching you from the shadows? What if the love of your life has become your silent shadow? There's something that must be revealed. Something that's been draining your energy when no one is watching. The stalker you sense, feel, or dream about is not a stranger. It's someone who carries your name etched into their essence. It was supposed to be love, purpose, fulfillment. But now, it's spiritual surveillance. This video is not just a revelation, it's a mirror. And you're about to understand what happens when a soulmate strays from the light. If you've ever felt like someone was watching you, even when no one was around, if certain names return to your mind out of nowhere, or if some eyes have followed you too intensely, then you need to watch until the end. Today, we will break an invisible bond that has tried to keep you trapped in an energy that no longer serves your divine purpose. But before we go on, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write the number 999 in the comments. That declares to the universe that you're ready to free yourself from any corrupted energy and walk only with what vibrates in the light. Let's begin. You were chosen for love. But not every love is prepared to walk in the light. Sometimes the promise made in heaven is broken by a decision made on earth. And when that happens, what was a bond becomes a watcher. What was an embrace becomes an invisible presence. This video will show you why that person who seemed made for you now seems to be silently stalking you, and why this is more spiritual than emotional. You will discover why you can't forget, and why this soul still tries to find you, even though it can no longer reach you. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you when no one else was present? As if a living memory you never asked for was clinging to you? Chosen One, that presence circling your mind and stirring your spirit is not an illusion. It's the echo of a soul that was made to love you, but veered off course. It was a divine connection, the bond many call a soulmate, but few can uphold until the end. This person was assigned to walk beside you, a shared mission, but because of dark choices, they lost the place they once held in your journey. And now, they watch what they lost. They don't pursue you with hatred, but with regret. This isn't love, it's guilt. The soul that strayed knows what it lost, knows what you carry, knows that by choosing the shortcuts of the ego, it lost the chance to live the truth of the spirit. And now, even from afar, even corrupted, it still tries to feel something of you. It watches you like someone trying to grasp a breath of what was once sacred. But the problem is, this presence doesn't propel you, it drains you. Because what comes from the shadows never feeds the light. It is spiritual surveillance masked as carnal desire, guilt disguised as longing. This soul misses the promise that was once made, but refuses to accept the consequences of breaking it. And that's why it tries to reconnect, even in secret. You feel it during moments of silence, when your mind tries to rest, but something keeps it awake. When dreams are invaded, when signs appear from nowhere, and everything seems to carry the signature of someone who hasn't forgotten you. But don't be deceived. What this soul feels now is not real love. It is spiritual possessiveness. It is the attempt to reconnect not out of purpose, but out of energetic desperation. Your connection was legitimate, yes, but that doesn't mean it remained pure. Free will distorts destinies, even those designed by heaven. And when a soul abandons its path of light, it begins to lose itself from within. Love turns to attachment. Connection turns to surveillance. What was sweet becomes toxic. You feel this because your soul still recognizes who they once were. But you also feel a subtle repulsion as you begin to sense who they have become. There's an invisible rupture unfolding, a silent battle between what was once promised and what today is only residue. This soul watching you no longer has access to your spirit, but it tries to reach your emotional field. It knows it can't touch you with purity anymore, so it tries to affect you with memories, triggers, doubts. And if you're not vigilant, you might confuse all this with longing, with unresolved love, with unfinished destiny. But the truth runs deeper. You were sanctified through pain, healed through rejection, and as you broke free, that soul sank into pacts that pulled them away from the person you've become. And now, as they observe you, they feel the pain of the one who was left behind. You, chosen one, must not feel guilty for this. Love is divine, but it is not immune to downfall. And the soul that stalks you knows its presence no longer fits your frequency. That's why it hides. That's why it appears only as shadow, as recurring memory, as a sensation of something unfinished. But you must understand, not everything that begins in light ends with it. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is not allowing that soul to reach you again. Because loving in this case would mean yielding, and yielding would mean contamination. Your mission requires discernment, and now it's time to cut ties with what's already lost. You feel the weight of this because the connection was real. But the cycle has ended in the spiritual realm. What remains is just emotional residue, fed by a soul that hasn't yet accepted the portal has closed. It watches you because it feels it lost something eternal. And indeed, it did. But the eternal does not go back. The eternal only transforms. And you, chosen one, are in transformation. You're being shaped by pains others couldn't endure. You're preparing for something greater. And that's why those who didn't align with your mission can now only watch from the outside, like someone admiring what they can no longer touch. This soul who became your hidden observer didn't vanish. It was displaced, expelled from the divine root, but still clinging to the memory of what could have been. And that is what consumes them. What was felt between you wasn't fake, but it was mishandled, misunderstood, and above all, mischosen. Free will is a portal. It either elevates you or it distances you. And what was meant to be a shared altar turned into a battlefield of inner conflict. The stalker surrounding you now is living proof that not every soulmate can handle the light they carry. Sometimes they choose to extinguish it and burn themselves trying to control what they don't understand. And you, chosen one, must understand this. It is not your responsibility to rescue what chose to drown. That soul had time, signs, dreams, warnings, but ignored them all, chose shortcuts, empty passions, pacts with darkness. And still, their spirit watches you, trying to absorb a fragment of the light it lost. It's like a dead plant trying to survive in the shade of another tree. But you can no longer give life to what uprooted itself from sacred soil. Now, your journey demands that you protect yourself, even from those you once loved with your whole heart. It's painful, I know, because the soul feels before the mind understands. There's a sadness that lingers deep in the chest, the sense that something sacred has been broken. But that doesn't mean you're incomplete. Quite the opposite. You are too whole to fit into what was once fragmented. The stalker following you isn't just a person. It's a distorted memory of a promise that was never fulfilled. And those memories, when fed, return with force. So, chosen one, be vigilant with what you feel. Not every warmth in the chest is longing. Sometimes, it's just spiritual interference. You were separated for a purpose. And that separation was not punishment. It was deliverance. Because what that soul would have become beside you could have dragged you down as well. The pain you felt was the price of your protection. What you lost was actually what kept you whole. Now you begin to understand that some losses are miracles in disguise. And the persistent presence of this spiritual stalker is just another reminder of what you've overcome. Don't be ashamed for still feeling, but don't romanticize what now drains you. True love propels you. It doesn't watch from behind. This soul that now lingers around your energy was once an extension of your own spirit. And perhaps that's why the sense of connection still persists. But there's a difference between a bond and a chain. And what you have now is not a bond. It is spiritual imprisonment dressed up as emotional connection. You are being tested to see if you can recognize what is pure love and what is attachment disguised as passion. The persistent presence of this soul is no longer a sign of a bond. It's a cry of desperation, and you cannot confuse thirst for energy with true longing. She tries to access you through doors you haven't yet closed, through songs you still listen to, through memories you still feed, through prayers you may, unknowingly, still say. And that's why she keeps coming back, because there's still an opening. But the good news is that opening can be sealed. When you understand that loving is also knowing when to let go, that protecting your mission is also saying no to nostalgia, and that honoring your light means closing all portals to any form of energetic invasion, even those disguised as love from the past. That soul fell, but you cannot fall with her. The weight of the pain cannot make you forget the magnitude of your calling. The chosen one's journey is solitary for a reason. Not everyone can walk with you, and many who try only want your light, but not your truth. You weren't made to walk with those who hide. You were made to walk with those who face you, who honor the mission, who choose the light even when everything around them calls for darkness. And if that soul couldn't do that, then she will only watch from a distance, but never again walk by your side. The hardest part isn't accepting that the soul stalking you was your soulmate. The hardest part is accepting that not every soulmate fulfills what it promises. Some get lost, some choose another path, and even feeling they were made to love, they choose to wound. Because loving requires sacrifice. It requires truth. And that soul didn't want to pay the price of the light. She chose the easy road, the empty praise, the invitations of the world. And now, she wanders as a shadow, trying to steal the glow she once could have shared with you, but you moved on. And now, she only watches. That's why you feel chills, premonitions, recurring dreams. That's why, sometimes, something weighs on you without apparent reason. The presence of that soul is silent, but not harmless. She looks at you with the eyes of someone who still desires, but also resents you. And this creates a deep spiritual duality around you. Because at the same time she misses you, she also blames you for moving on, as if your evolution is a daily reminder of her stagnation. And it is. You've become a mirror she doesn't want to face, but also can't stop looking at. This puts you in a dangerous position, because if you leave space, even out of pity, you'll be drained. Her pain will be poured over you, and slowly, you'll begin to question yourself, to doubt your decisions, to wonder if maybe you should have tried harder. But no, what you lived was real. But what she has become is no longer compatible with you. The chosen one must understand. Love must walk in spiritual unity. When one disconnects from the light, the bond ceases to be a covenant and becomes a shackle. And no shackle can walk with a free spirit. The spiritual stalker is the reflection of a broken destiny, a route that was diverted. And even though that soul still feels something for you, it's not enough. Love that doesn't transform into light-filled action turns into illusion, and you can no longer live on illusions. Not after everything you've endured, not after everything you've conquered. This soul stalks you because you are the reminder of what she could have been, because your light is now sacred, untouchable, shielded, and every step you take hurts her because it shows you didn't stop. While she got lost in her own shadows, that infuriates her because you kept going, because you didn't wait, because you didn't beg to be taken back, because even while bleeding, you chose to heal. Meanwhile, even when given chances, she chose to repeat the same mistakes. Now, your existence is a thorn in her conscience, and even if you can't see her, she sees you. Spiritually, energetically, in thoughts, in dreams, she tries to return, tries to sneak in, tries to make you remember what was good, what was magical, what seemed eternal. But you need to remember that even paradise can become a prison if inhabited by the wrong soul. You must remain firm, because there is a new love reserved for you, a clean, faithful, pure love. But that love cannot come while the presence of the shadow still lingers. As long as you haven't closed the portals, the new cannot dwell. Heaven does not pour promises into cups still holding residue. And what's left from that old connection are residues. Strong, yes, but not invincible. And you have the authority to cleanse, to sever, to be reborn. Your light must be safeguarded. And that begins with the final end of any spiritual nostalgia still tying you to what has already died. The true calling of the chosen one demands strategic solitude. Not everyone can come with you, and those who can't handle your mission will inevitably try to hold you back, be it out of unhealed love, spiritual envy, or sheer emotional confusion. But your direction cannot be determined by those who chose to stay, by those who strayed, by those who prefer to watch rather than walk. The spiritual stalker is the guardian of stagnation. You are the ambassador of movement. There is no longer room for both to exist together. One must leave, and now it's time to break the cycle that still tries to watch you in silence. And breaking this cycle is not an act of contempt. It is an act of protection. You don't need to hate the one who lost you, but you must protect yourself from those who no longer honor your energy. Because a fallen soul clings to what's left. And what's left is you. your memory, your scent, your energetic presence that still echoes through the corners of time.
But you are not a refuge for fugitive souls. An extension of the divine, and for that reason, you can no longer serve as shelter for those who don't respect the holiness within you. Releasing is necessary. Severing
is sacred. Forgetting is spiritual protection. Chosen. One, understand, when the other soul fell, the connection fell too. What you feel now is just the echo. And an echo has no presence. It only makes noise. This presence that circles you, that tries to pull you back, is no longer love. It's a corrupted bond. And a corrupted bond becomes a trap. That's why you must declare in spirit, I release, I sever, I move forward. It doesn't matter what was promised. What matters is what was fulfilled. And that soul did not fulfill. It chose the wide path, and now misses the altar it once despised. But the altar is closed, and the light will no longer be shared with the one who chose darkness. And the deepest part of this revelation is realizing that the stalking is actually a silent cry for help. That soul doesn't know how to return, but also cannot leave. So it remains between worlds, between what was meant to be and what is no longer possible. And that in-between consumes her. And she tries to access you because, even from afar, you are still her point of reference, the lighthouse. But you can no longer be a guide for someone who refuses to follow the light. You can no longer be a support for someone who wants to drag you down with them. Your mission is greater than guilt. And love, when unbalanced, becomes prison. You were freed by a pain that once seemed unjust, but now reveals itself as divine shielding. The separation was hard, yes, but it was precise. What seemed like loss was protection, and what seemed like an end was a beginning. You started living after the end of that connection. You began to bloom in the soil of absence. You started to grow where there was once only spiritual dependency, and now you must protect this new ground. Because the spiritual stalker doesn't just want to watch you. They want to pull you back to the place where you were still fragile. But you are no longer that being who suffered. You were reborn. Rebirth is painful because it requires burial, and you must once and for all bury what no longer blooms. The soul that circles you is no longer a seed. It's a dead root, and keeping dead roots in the field of your soul only rots the flowers that are now beginning to grow. That's why, chosen one, prepare yourself. The spiritual cut will be final, and maybe the presence of that soul will even increase for a while. Because when light solidifies, shadows stir. But do not fear. You are surrounded by greater forces, protected by silent angels, and guided by a purpose no stalker can intercept. That soulmate became a stalker because they couldn't bear your brightness. And this is not arrogance. It's truth. Some souls prefer to walk in the dark than face the reflection of who they could have been. You became too much light for someone who only knows twilight. And even though love, memories, and sighs from the past still exist, the path now is different. The chosen one must walk with those who honor, who grow, who respect. And that soul did not respect. That's why now she watches from the outside, because her presence in your field is no longer permitted. It has been removed by heaven, by truth, by you. And maybe it still hurts. Maybe it still burns. Because not all pain means something is wrong. Sometimes pain is just the body adjusting to a new frequency. And you are vibrating higher now. That's why what once felt comfortable now feels tight. What once felt like love now wounds you, and what once seemed like destiny now reveals itself as distraction. You were spared, even in pain, even without understanding. But now you see, now you feel, and now you must choose. Remain in the cycle of spiritual vigilance or break free once and for all and become untouchable. The decision is in your soul, and heaven is waiting. The time has come when you can no longer live with half your soul anchored in the past. The future demands full presence. And as long as that old soul continues to circle your energy, part of you will remain stuck between two worlds. You've felt this already. Forward movement followed by emotional setbacks, memories that surface in sacred moments, connections that feel like interference. This is not coincidence. It is spiritual. It is the desperate attempt of a rejected soul trying to revive a covenant heaven has already dissolved. But you can no longer allow it. Now, it's time to close the portals. Portals are opened by unresolved feelings, by prayers spoken with doubt, by memories fed with melancholy, by messages never deleted, by songs that still hurt and yet still play. All of this is energy that keeps the field open, and the spiritual stalker feeds off of it. Off your hesitation, off your misplaced compassion, off your what if. But now is the time to say no, to take a stand, to firmly seal what has already been closed in the spirit. Because until you say enough out loud and clearly, that soul will continue to find cracks. Don't expect them to disappear easily. Their presence fed off you for a long time, watched you, studied you, tried to reach you without touching. This created a deep, yet fragile, energetic structure. And now you have the chance to break it. Word by word, choice by choice. You break this bond not only through declarations, but through actions. By not responding to the call of nostalgia, by refusing to revisit the places of the past, by choosing the present with full awareness. That's when the surveillance dissolves. That's when the light becomes indivisible again. And indivisible light is the terror of the fallen. Because those who can no longer touch you will at least try to distract you. But don't let them. You were called for more, to live clean love, full love, love without shadows. The soul that stalks you today is the one who didn't want to share that love with you when they had the chance. And now that you've ascended, they try to live off scraps. But you weren't born to give scraps. You were born to be a temple, and temple does not mix with ruin. Temple is sacred. You are now a dwelling place for glory, and the one who chose darkness will only be able to watch from afar. That is their destiny now, to watch, to see you thrive, to see you find true love, to see you heal everything they broke. Because that's what happens to the chosen one. They are always restored, always honored, always protected. Even if the pain lasts for a night, joy comes in the morning. And your morning has arrived. The vigil is over. The cycle has ended. The portal is closing. And everything that belongs to darkness will be left outside. You will move forward, and they will remain. Because those who chose the shadow can no longer dwell where the light reigns. Maybe one day that soul will understand. Maybe it will awaken. Maybe it will find redemption. But that is no longer your mission. It's no longer your responsibility to accompany that process. The chosen one must focus on their own path, on their own protection, on their divine calling. You were not made to stay trapped trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You were made to inspire, to shine, to lead. And sometimes, in order to move forward, you must let go, even if it hurts, even if you're bleeding, because the mission continues and heaven doesn't wait. The time for hesitation is over. Now is the time to reign, to be free, to ascend, because in the end, chosen one. What seemed like persecution was just an echo of what no longer lives. What seemed like love was just shadow. And what seemed eternal was only temporary. But you are eternal, because you were sealed, chosen, anointed. And now that the truth has been revealed, there is nothing left to bind you. That soulmate became a witness. The one who was meant to walk beside you now only watches. And that is enough. You are no longer the victim of the vigil. You are the fulfillment of the promise. And no shadow will ever again have a voice over your destiny. You've made it this far because your soul knows the truth. Because you already sensed there was something wrong with that connection. Something that couldn't die, but also never healed. Now you understand. True love doesn't stalk, doesn't drain, doesn't hide. True love walks beside you, honors. The light protects your energy. And if that soul today only watches you from the shadows, it's because they chose the opposite side of the mission. But you, chosen one, remained. You resisted. And for that, you will be rewarded with the new, with clean love, with holy companionship, with peace that doesn't require an open wound to exist. And if this message spoke to you, declare it in the comments. Write the number 999 to seal in the spiritual realm that you are ready to be completely free from any soul who chose the shadow. I also want you to take this moment and leave a like on this video right now, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notifications, because the next videos will keep revealing secrets many tried to hide from you. And if you want to go even deeper into your liberation, click the video suggested on the screen and watch it now. May your mission be fulfilled with glory, with strength, and with true love until the next awakening.